Is anybody else able to like be still when they're hearing that cutest song ever?
Real cute. What
is that the cutest? Those are Kate's kids. Like say, "Hi, moms," and I'm like clapping.
Oh my God, I love it.
And my parents wrote the music and recorded the music. This is like a special gift of my stepdad, and I was like, "Hey, we're doing this new show. Will you write us something?" And it was like a day later he sent this to us. So sweet.
Well, hey guys, I am Hannah Henry Bell here with Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, and we are Law Moms Out Loud. We are here with our very special guest, Karen Vladeck, and we are just thrilled that she was able to make it work. She is super busy with everything going on, which she's going to tell us a little bit about. But we're excited to be joining you to have a very fun conversation with one of our favorite she's an Austin local law mom. So I think, Kate, you're going to kick us off, like catch us up.
Yeah, Karen's real fancy. If you don't know her, she's
I'm so fancy. Look at them. Look at how fancy they are. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I didn't put makeup on. They're like professional hair, leggings. I'm like, oh, in my office. Is that okay?
So we're twinning today, me and Kate. I don't know if you can see. We've got a big Law Moms Austin event tonight with T-shirts and everything. I know, Karen, you couldn't be there.
I know.
It's going to be so cool. It's Margaret Atwood and Gloria Steinem, and like 50 of the law moms in Austin are coming with our matching shirts, and we're going to take over the Paramount. It's going to be so fun. So excited. And Hannah organized the whole thing. Hannah's amazing.
Very, very. It's gotten the organization's gotten a little off the rails here in the last 2 hours.
Yeah. It's
we'll go down there anyway.
So anyway, Karen, the fancy lady, the fancy one here today, is anybody who's a local lawyer knows Karen and probably her husband, and she'll talk about that. But there's been a recent change. So everybody knew Karen as this partner at a law firm that does really high level corporate litigation. And is very well respected in the community. But Karen, you've had a recent career shift. So will you talk to us a little bit about
Yes. Okay, so I'll give you my background and then I'll tell you about the career shift. So I was a litigator for 13 years. I graduated law school in 2009. Where'd you
go to law school?
I went to the University of Miami. I had gone to Cornell for undergrad, and in the spring of my senior year, I thought I want to go to law school, but I don't want to go anywhere north of the Mason-Dixon line. I was done with snow. I wanted to be somewhere in the South. And so I applied only to Southern schools, and Miami sent me a letter that said, you're a finalist for a full scholarship. Come down. We're going to interview you for it. So I literally left Ithaca in February. This was February 2006 with like 6 feet of snow. I couldn't even like walk because it was so cold. I land in Miami. I don't have to tell Kate about the tropical, amazing climates of Miami. And they literally just like wine you and dine you for a weekend. And then they're like, do you want to go to law school for free? So I was like, sure. Like,
yes,
whatever. So I had no connection really to Miami whatsoever. But it was great. I'm still super, super close with my law school friends. We talk all the time. But then I moved to DC after graduation. I clerked for a year on the Maryland Supreme Court. It's called the Maryland Court of Appeals. I came on my clerkship in 2010 when there was like no jobs. So I worked mostly doing like real estate litigation for 2 years at a mid-Atlantic firm. And then in 2012, moved over to Aaron Fox, which is a big DC big law firm. Did that for almost 5 years. And then my husband, Steve, who was at American University at the time in DC, he got a job at Texas. So like the year before I was up for partner in big law, we decided, let's move to Austin. I had been to Texas like twice in my life. I knew pretty much nothing about it, but I was like, you know what? We've been in DC for so long. All of our friends are kind of like moving into that let's have kids phase part of our lives. So we moved here. And when I moved, my daughter was 6 months old. And it makes me laugh that Kate's like, everybody knows you, because when I moved to Austin, y'all, I didn't know anybody. Like my husband and I sat in the driveway of our house. We moved to Clarksville when we first moved here. It was August 2006. Excuse me, gosh, 2016. I looked at him. Are we allowed to cuss on this? Probably not, right?
I mean, we're not,
I
told
think
by
we
any
do.
regulators.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say,
Yeah.
I guess they'll bleep us.
I said, what the bleep did we do? Like,
Yeah.
it's 1,000 degrees here. Did we literally move to the surface of the sun? Why is it so hot here?
Was it the summer when you moved?
It was August.
Oh,
It was so
God.
hot.
From
So
DC,
awful.
yeah, dying.
And like we had lived in DC, which was hot too, but it was so hot. I had a 6-month-old. I had just had mastitis. So I was like dead. And then we have this house. It's like got all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, what did we do? I looked at him and I was like, should we just go back? Like, should we just go back to DC? We'd been in Austin for like 3 days. And he's like, listen, this is what he said to me, and I'll never forget this. He's like, if in 1 year you are as miserable as you are now, we'll go back. Like, I will find a job in DC and we will go back. And of course, lo and behold, like you start to meet people. One of the first people that I met was Casey Dudley in Mamas.
Hey, Casey, if you're watching.
I know. Who then introduced me to Catherine Triarello, who was eventually what brought me into the partnership where I was until I left to go to recruiting. And honestly, I just credit so much of my like becoming integrated into the Austin scene through Mamas, because it's just such an amazing supportive group. And everybody was like, it really was like, that was very transformational for me, honestly. And I love Amy, and I tell her this all the time, that like, she like really did change my life through that group. I would have never found so many opportunities that have really kind of fallen into my lap after getting to know people in that group. So a year in, I was like, okay, I like it more and more, but it was a slow warm. And then I'd say probably like 2 or 3 years in, I really kind of hit my stride. I was already a partner at Whitliff Cutter, started to meet a lot of people in town. Steve's profile started to rise. My husband a lot during the Trump administration. So he's like extremely anti-Trump. And so his sort of Twitter profile took off. Mine took off at the same time. So like, I don't know, things have just sort of organically grown from there.
And I think it takes I think that's an important point, Karen, to just anybody who's watching. And I moved to Austin in 2018 and basically didn't know anybody. So I know that feeling. I was driving up the Mopac, and which is
that's how you know she's not an Austinite, by the way, because she just
the Mopac.
Yeah, the Mopac.
That's Austinite,
I was driving up.
Never.
At first, back then I would have been calling it the one. Okay, that's how I'm going to drive up the one, and I was driving, and it's this like road that everybody goes up and down in Austin all the time, and there are these like tall concrete walls on parts of it. And as I was driving, I just had this sense of, I would moved up from San Antonio, and it had this sense of like, oh, why did I move here? It's like ugly, and there's like these wall roads, and this real sort of gut check moment of like, do I need to undo this and like go straight back down to the 09 where I'd come from in San Antonio? And I think your husband was very wise to say, like, look, give it 1 year.
Yeah.
Give it X number of appreciable period of time. Yeah. Of course, it's going to feel like crap. Like there's tension and change, and you have to sit in that tension for a little bit and give yourself a minute to get adjusted. So I think that was super smart. It was true for my life too. So like one takeaway from this conversation, if you're new here, I've seen a lot of posts in the Mamas group recently of like new moms coming and getting ready to get acclimated. Just at least a year. Really, I think after 2 years, because you've had like 2 holidays, 2 sets of seasons, 2 sets of surviving Texas heat or wherever, the snow if you're up north, and like give yourself space to adjust, and don't expect the same level of connection it took you years to build somewhere else.
100%. Right? And I also think part of it for me was like twofold. One, we had a 6-month-old. My oldest is in kindergarten now, so that's how much time has passed. But like I thought very misguidedly that like I'd be at the park with my 6-month-old and I would just like make friends, and like it's just not what happens, right? Like, first of all, I was a working mom, so I was in a law firm all day every day at work while she was in daycare, and like on the weekends, we would like go to our neighborhood park, but like people were there to like make sure their kids like weren't getting hurt, and you chat a little bit, but like that wasn't where I was going to make the genuine connections with people. And so I think it was that was hard for me. And also like I was mourning a little bit of my late 20s, early 30s life where like all my friends were in the same 9-block radius. None of us had kids. We could like go get a beer whenever we wanted. And so it was the combination of mourning the childless period of my life ending, even though I was so excited. We had been working for so long to have her. So I was obviously happy to be a mom, but you can still mourn the old you know? And then moving to a new place where I didn't know anyone, and just like the genuine angst of like, how am I going to find my people? Obviously,
how'd you find them?
Well, I'm talking to two extreme extroverts, so obviously you guys know like the importance of finding people. But like, I do really think that I credit a lot of like to mamas, like people introducing me to other people, right? And so one of the reasons that like I got into the job that I'm in now was so many people helped me along the way with like making connections for folks that I realized that like that's actually something that I love to do. And Hannah Hembry Bell is of course the queen of this because she will just literally message anyone out of thin air and be like, hey, want to meet for a coffee? And when you're like, oh yeah, sure, she's like, no, let's go now. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess we're meeting.
Little strong. Kate's laughing because I did it to her.
Yeah. She'll like make you do. So literally I told her this. I was like, I think I like black out when we text because she will be like, oh, you should do this. And I'm like, okay. And then like all of a sudden I Venmo'd her like this insane amount of money to like go on some trip in 6 months. Like I don't understand how she does it, but she literally will like convince you to do anything. It's very persuasive. And so I
don't know what you're talking about.
Let me back up.
I do.
So part of
Kate's laughing because I get her into trouble about.
I'm like I don't understand. Kate, right? Doesn't she do that?
No, totally. No, it's always
like,
fun. It's always a good choice.
That's how we're on this show. That's
how did that happen? Right? Yeah. She like cons people into stuff. In a good way.
Sassy word.
In a good way.
Yes.
Not like in a fraudulent way.
No, but I think the point is, I mean, I know I can share some of this, and I think this is super helpful to people. Because you do, like in the movies, everybody has their cute babies and their things. They start talking at the park and they meet for the park every morning at 9, and that's how you're friends. And I think when you're an adult, like learning to make friends in a new environment or whatever, I mean, it's a skill. And I can say for myself,
really hard.
I mean, I am super outgoing. I have no problem like, hey, I'd like to be your friend. We should start talking. But what I've learned a lot, and I think Kate can probably tell more. You don't even know I'm going to ask you this. Like one thing I've learned from Kate is how to be a good friend as an adult. Yeah. Because I think like, make a coffee. I'm good at that. Like, let's go to coffee. Let's go to lunch. I'll even like check back, we have a good connection and then but Kate will like, we had this really great coffee also at Brentwood, like secrets out. That's where I take all of my friends. And we go over to Brentwood and we had this super great coffee. But the thing that Kate does different, and I think this is a pro tip to take away, is she follows through. So like, how was your day? But not in this way of like, my number one pet peeve is people always say, oh, hi, Karen, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. And I hate it. Yeah. And so Kate doesn't do that. She's like, how was your day? How are you feeling? Like, and this sort of consistent follow-up, to me, that's what takes it beyond like a colleague connection to a friend. And so, Kate, I don't know, is there a method? Did you learn to do that? Is that just natural to you?
Well, I don't just do that with everybody. I mean, I do that with people that I'm interested in having friendships with. And so I think one thing that's really interesting about now post-pandemic is like, I think we all went through this period of deciding that we were going to be more careful about how we were going to spend our time and who we were going to spend it with. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's a great time, I think, to be in a new place. And it's really, we're strapped. We're working full time. We're moms. We don't have time for all the friendships. And so I think it's a really interesting and good time to reassess and think about where am I going to spend my friendship time, because it's really, really important to all of us. I'm sure it's, it's like our kids are so draining. Our marriages, are wonderful, but it's like a totally different thing than what you get from your girlfriends. And when you find someone that connects deeply and isn't just like being surface with you, I mean, it's like, you got to grab that,
Why, Kate? Why do you think? I mean, because I feel like this is one of those things that it's like a truism we take for granted. Like having friends matters. Okay. Right. So like to me, I think that's one of those truths that is worth examining, because some people as adults, they don't have close friendships and they're still successful and maybe live like, so why, when you say, and Karen, I'm interested in your thought on this too, like why is it so important to foster these adult, and for us, we're talking in the context especially of like our law moms, like female friendships. Why is that so important?
Well, what comes to my mind right now, that's a really big question, with a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, but that, especially with my daughters are 9 and 4, and I'm really aware of how much they are evolving and changing. My 9-year-old has shaved her long curly blonde hair off into a mohawk, and she's like
So
bleaching
cool.
her ears. I mean, she's super cool, but she's like, she's pulling away. She's becoming her own person. And it's like, we're going to get so focused on our jobs and achievement and whatever the next step is for us. And we're so focused on pouring everything we have into our babies and raising them so that they launch. And it actually goes by really fast, but these friendships that we have with each other, they're going to be here forever, if we treat them well. And, like I can say I've had kind of a hard week just emotionally, and not for any objective reason. Like things are going well, but I've struggled a little bit just because I'm processing some things. And it has been so valuable for me to be able to just call Hannah and talk to her about it. And, it's like just a sounding board. I don't know what I would do without it. And it's not enough to just have your family, because that's ever changing. Those are my thoughts in the moment.
What do you think, Karen? Are adult female like true friendships important to you?
Oh my gosh, of course. I mean, I'm still like, I think that, first of all, there's the support aspect of it, right? Of like, when you have a baby or when you have a major life moment, like who's showing up for you, right? Like those are the people that lift you up and support you. And like, those are going to happen from true friendships, right? Like last year when our friend and Dr. Dodson died, like the number of people who showed up for me in that process it was like amazing. I really felt supported. It felt like there were a lot of people with hands on my back. And that all happens from like giving yourself to somebody else and making a real genuine connection. And then when you need that, like that person gives it back to you. Right. So I think, and I am like, I'm definitely in a quantity over quality in terms of like friendships, right? So it's like, I'm not best friends with every single person I meet. I definitely have that, like, we have a relationship and I could reach out to you if I needed something in your field or something like that. Like there's that one level. And then there's like the people that you talk to all the time who you're like sending a selfie to of like, should I wear this or should I wear that? Like that is important to me, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's in the same city as you, but I think especially when you have very young kids, like I just yearned for a real connection with someone, at least for, people who were in somewhat the same sort of life circumstances as I was, which was having young kids and working. And so that took some time to find, but like, it's been really an amazing group of ladies that I've found. And it's not like a group of friends where we all hang out with each other, right? Like I have one-off friendships with these people. And so, yeah, it really was like organic, but I do think, as Kate said, like it takes effort and it takes time, and it can't just be that like surface, hey, how are you? It has to really be like, oh, the person's really interested in establishing that friendship and that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, so when I was having my kids, so I started having kids when I was 23. And I was young and nobody else my age was having kids, and it was very isolating. And y'all know, like, and y'all are still even have smaller ones. I mean, I have a baby now, but like I have the big ones and the baby, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very different. And I can, yeah, I know, little peony, and then like people who are I have a head taller than me. Right. And it's a very different experience doing it sort of 23 in a not good marriage, alone feeling, versus now fully supported and in this web of connection. Yeah. And I think for me, yes, there's a support. Yes, that has a utility component, right? Like getting that support we give to get a little bit. But I think for me, the thing I felt very alone, and often have in my life, like despite being around a lot of people, like this other part of you that maybe isn't expressed as a mom, is not even expressed as a wife, it's not expressed as a lawyer or a recruiter or an artist or whatever, but it's like this other thing. And for me, that's what these like really true robust friendships that I have now that I never I never even knew that was a thing until I started to hit this different stride in my life. And I think just one other reason maybe to have friends is there's a piece of you that doesn't feel like, I think this is probably true for most of us, that doesn't get expressed except in that sort of like warm comfort, connective moment with a girlfriend, with a glass of wine, with a cup of tea, or whatever, or in the daily, like, yeah, what am I going to wear? Or like, oh my God, you can't even believe what this guy just said to me at the courthouse, or whatever. That brings out another part of you. So I think in some ways it's like a way to find self-expression in our adult life. So anyway, I just think it's like we're saying we had no idea.
Hannah froze for me for a second. Karen, did she?
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so
but
Hannah, we'll wait for
you. Like how she froze is like.
Yeah, she is like very Hannah. And let's take a minute and just acknowledge everybody that's here watching, interacting with us. We've got a bunch of likes: Kathleen, Kana, Melissa, Josh, Sarah, Joy, Fidel, Paula. Look at all y'all. Laura. And then we've got a wow face from Austin Kaplan. I think he's impressed by our guest.
Hey, Austin.
Oh, I'm here. Can y'all, did y'all lose me? Sorry.
We can hear you. You're still frozen in your fabulous pose, but it's okay. I think we can hear you. I'm just reading through the comments. We've got Abeth says, look at you guys. Nice to see you all. Fidel loves our shirts.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, I don't have one. Their shirts. Yes.
So you can get an honorary shirt.
I do want an honorary shirt. That shirt's awesome.
They're so bad.
I need that. Yeah, I need that shirt.
Yeah, it's really good. I feel like I want to do something with the sleeves, but anyway, that's a topic.
I know. I have a roll-up sleeve going on, Kate.
Oh, okay. Then we've got people responding to the Texas heat, iconic. Raven is making fun of you, Hannah, for calling it the Mopac. Raven, and then Fidel's like, wait.
Why didn't you tell me, Raven?
No, it's called Mopac. It's the part.
Right.
I know. Actually, I really didn't even know that it's not called the Mopac until y'all just made fun of me.
We've got a question for you, Hannah. Wen wants to know your zodiac sign.
Oh, can y'all not already tell I'm a Leo, like 100%?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
August 2 birthday. Yes, I'm like all the Leo. Although, Kate, you're like the most Leo looking of all of us.
Look, and then here's someone. Oh, I do have a main. I do. This is great. Delita Messiah. This is someone who comes to my Spanish radio shows on immigration. So I don't know who you are behind this name of yours. I know you're a law student, but no, I don't know that actually. That's another person. But anyway, here's a good question. If you could go back in time and pick a different career, what career would you have chosen? Karen, let's hear it.
Well, I already did it. So, I recently just transitioned. I was a lawyer for 13 years and now I'm a recruiter. And it's weird because I actually don't think I would be nearly as successful in my recruiting if I hadn't been a lawyer first. So I actually wouldn't have changed careers. I would have been a lawyer, done this, and then everything in my life has turned out shockingly like I had a plan, but I really didn't. And so I would not go back in time and pick a different career for me.
Same.
Well, it's funny. Well, Kate, you go ahead.
No, same thing. And this is, oftentimes, I go back and talk to law students, and I remember in law school, I thought that you either went, public interest, or you went big law, or you went in-house. It was there were 4 buckets of possibilities as a lawyer. And now, 15 years out or whatever, every single one of my friends is doing something completely different. There's thousands of buckets. And the people who didn't just follow the supposed to path are the ones who are fulfilled and happy. The people who went after whatever it was that tugged at their heart, and so that's the key. That's what you do. You follow what you're interested in. And there is a way to make money doing whatever it is that you love. That's just the truth.
Well, and one of the things, so I get to go back to my alma mater, St. Mary's, what's up, Rattlers, and talk to law students. And one of the things I always talk about, because they're trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I want to be when I grow up? And I don't know, the way I've thought to explain it is if you follow your pain, then you're going to find something you're going to be really successful at and can really make an impact in the world.
Mm.
And so for me, like my career changed. Karen, it's opposite day. So I was a recruiter before I went to law school, right? So we are the inverse of each other. And I was good and liked recruiting. And I'm still friends with a bunch of I did medical field nurse practitioners and PAs back then. But for me, going to law school and now doing family law, which I do, was about like pressing in and connecting to the very painful situation that I went through. So I think, Kate, to that point, like in following that to find your purpose and being brave and courageous to do that. But anyway, I guess I did go back in time. Like if I go back in time, I did change careers. And I think being a lawyer is awesome. And I think it is the best job out there. I don't care what any of these haters say. We get to like make big changes in the world. And I know Kate and I work with families on the front lines, trying to have a better future and a better life, both in their immigration status and in their familial status. So that's a good question, though.
So it is a good question. And I want to talk about, Karen, what you're doing these days as a recruiter, because this conversation we're having is more along the lines of, what should people do with their lives and like this existential decision point.
Yeah.
Which is not the moment where you typically step in with
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about who needs you?
Sure. So it's interesting because I had never used a recruiter when I was in big law. Like I just happened to apply. The way that I describe a recruiter is it is a lawyer's agent. So actors, Tom Cruise has an agent, Will Smith has an agent. All those people, like they're stars, but they really have someone behind the scenes doing like a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's what a recruiter does. A good recruiter does. So like asterisk here that just like in real estate or in any sort of unregulated industry, like the bar to entry is incredibly low. Anyone can go online and make a website and say, I'm a legal recruiter. Like there's no certification. There's no bar exam. There's no regulating body. So that's why working with a good recruiter at a reputable company is so important, because there's a lot of ding dongs out there that like just will take your resume and throw it to the wind and see what sticks. And like, that's not what I do. And not all great recruiters are former lawyers, but a lot are. So like, that's something to look for in somebody's bio. Is what's good about them is they know all the lawyers, right? Like they know the industry, they know, and people can learn that, but it just takes a little bit more time. And so for me, like my transition into recruiting was I'd been an employment lawyer for 13 years. I liked it and I loved my firm and my colleagues, but I wasn't getting that like personal fulfillment out of it anymore. And I looked around at my colleagues who were like 10, 15 years older than me. And I said to myself, I don't want to do what they're doing in 10 or 15 years. So I started talking to different people about what might be a good fit for me, and there were so many people along the way, lots of law moms who were like, you should be a recruiter. It's in your DNA. You love connecting people. You love helping people. You love talking to lawyers and you're in the mix. And like, if someone would ask me for a referral for someone, I would be like, oh, I'll find you someone, like no matter where it is in the country. You know what I mean? Like I loved doing that. And so I started talking to different recruiters at different agencies about what they did, what their setup was. And I wasn't finding the right fit. And this is like you'll know it when you see it. And I finally got linked up through a friend, Kate probably knows him, Alex Sue, who's like a very famous LinkedIn, TikTok person in law. And he and I had done a couple TikTok collaborations. And he was
They're so cute.
Yeah, thank you.
They're like viral too.
Yeah, they went kind of viral. It was cool. And he's like, I want you to meet someone. I think you guys would really hit it off. And so he introduced me to Sean Burke, who's the founder of Whistler Partners. And it was like immediate. Within 5 minutes, I have a screenshot of this text. Like I texted my husband and I was like, when you talk to someone and you just kind of feel like this is going to kind of change the course of your life. You know what I mean? Like, and you kind of know it like immediately. Yes. And it was that kind of conversation. And I was like, this feels so right to me in terms of like what they're doing, their platform. Like if you go look at the Whistler Partners website, our whole thing is like being your so authentic self, like our bios are like really funny and are not like Karen went to the University of da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like it's not that. It's like who are you really as a person? Because I think like working with people in recruiting, you really have to like understand and know them as a person, right? So I started at Whistler this year. I launched the Texas operation. So they had only been in New York and California before that. And it's been amazing. So going back to Kate's question about who should contact me. So I work primarily in the law firm space. So that means people moving from one firm to another firm. And I work almost exclusively with women. Not because I like hold myself out to that, but because I think that that's the kind of energy that is attracted to me. And when I'm talking on somebody, when I'm talking to somebody who has reached out or who has responded to a message of mine or something, like I'm just a person who seeks out genuine connections. And I think that I just connect better with women, especially like women in my general age bracket of like, 25 to 45, like that age range. I feel like that's been the vast number of candidates that I've been working with. And it's been awesome. So and Kate's question was like, who should and shouldn't reach out to you? So I always say like, don't wait until you're so miserable that you're crying in the parking lot to like reach out to a recruiter, because then your next move is based on fear and panic as opposed to what is really the right fit for you. Right. And also like, I'm happy to talk to anybody, but like, if you love your job and you're just kind of like, is there something better out there? Like that also might not be a good fit for a recruiter, right? Because it's interviewing and getting all your submissions in and all that is like very time consuming. It's not something that you just like kind of do on a whim. So I would say like a good person to talk is like someone who's maybe interested in moving. Like if they got the right opportunity, would consider leaving. If they're not living in the geographic place that they want to be living in long term. If they are at a place where they know they're being paid under market, right? That's another reason to reach out. If they are not getting the kinds of work that they want to be doing. So you're a private equity mergers and acquisitions lawyer, but you really want to start doing like venture capital work, which I didn't really even know the difference between those two things before I started as a recruiter, but
I hear whoa.
I know.
Yeah. They like
that's hard.
Different. But so, or like you're a family law lawyer, but you really like want to be a commercial litigator. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So those are the people that I would say are good to reach out to me or another recruiter who's reputable. And then, I really just see myself as an agent. And I think that the reason that I like it so much is that instead of standing up and being like Karen Vladeck on behalf of Apple Incorporated in XYZ matter, it's like Karen Vladeck on behalf of Jane Doe leaving firm X and looking for firm Y, right? So like I'm on the phone from the moment I sit at my desk till the moment I go home, either on Zooms or talking to firms or talking to candidates. And like there is an enormous advocacy piece, both at the level of getting firms interested in a candidate, right? And also like in getting a candidate excited for a new position, because as Kate said, like change is hard. My like personal line about change is that change is antithetical to the human condition. It just is. Like when we were cave people, we weren't walking around looking for a million different caves every month. No, we found like the cave that was right. And that's where we did our home base from, right? And so it's like the idea that we constantly want to be changing. Of course, there's people who seek that out, but like the vast majority of human beings do not like change. They want to find a place that is really comfortable and homey for them, right? It's why we buy a house. Like it's why we settle down and nest and do all those things. And so it's like moving and doing job changes. Like it's like deprogramming our own DNA when we do that. So when I work with a candidate, I want to be that advocate and agent for them.
I think the career, one thing, Karen, I would pull out that you said, I even like wrote it down, and this is advice I got in an unlikely place when I was clerking at the big law firm, because I did employment law too.
Okay.
And before I did family law, and my buddy Ricardo said, look, you got to look at the people who already have what you're working toward. Like if they've already achieved the height of the path that you're on, and do you want that? Do you want that life of the people you're sort of following in their footsteps? And is that what you want? And for me, that was transformative. This little kind of one-off thing. I'm sure other people who know him who might be watching this have heard him say it. But it sounds like you found that to be true too, right? Like that they were these partners at this firm or whatever, and this path you were on is. Were you saying that that's sort of how you knew you wanted to do something different? Like you saw who already had and who'd already achieved what you wanted. Talk about that.
The reason that I knew is that I literally had the best possible law job on the planet. Like to me, I didn't bill that much. I made plenty of money. I had complete control over my own schedule. I had complete, frankly, control over what clients I wanted to work on. I was an equity partner in my firm. Like when you say, did she have it all in law? 100%. Like, but yet I didn't want to do it. I didn't want
to. How'd you have the courage? I want you to tell everybody here about the moment where you, I want to know the moment, because there was a moment. I have no doubt there was a moment where you had it all from the outside looking in. It was very clear to everybody looking at you that you've made it, but yet. So tell us about the yet.
So I think it was honestly like, it was a little bit of a slow creep for me. It wasn't like there was this one moment where I was just like, I'm done. And I threw up my papers and like walked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like a little voice inside of me that was like, I think you'd be really good at this. And so it was like over probably a 6-month period of time over the like starting in maybe like last summer, where I had somebody had reached out to me and was like, hey, can you help me with helping find a job? So I like put it out to my network, and like, lo and behold, that girl had a job in like 2 months. And there was like definitely like a pretty big hit of serotonin that came with that, where I was like, wow, I personally just changed the course of this girl's life through my own influence. Right. And I was like, what if I did this as a job? So like the person who had sent her to me, and this was not as a recruiter, I literally just like set her up with folks in my network. Right. And the person who had sent her to me was like, you should be a recruiter. And in my mind, I was like, I really should be a recruiter. Like it was like one of those, just like someone said it as an offhanded comment. And I was like, huh. So then I took a couple months, and like, it's kind of this mysterious industry. Like there's not a lot of folks who do it. It's in Texas. There's probably only like really a dozen or so good recruiters for the whole state.
So many questions.
There's just not that many good recruiters. And so I was like, okay. So I started talking to people, and like, I could immediately like knock some companies out because it just felt like going to a law firm, right? Like I was like, I don't want to go to a place that just feels like a big law firm, but our portraits are just recruiters. You know what I mean?
But I think, Karen, the point there to pull the thread a little bit is the whisper. Like Oprah talks about listening to the whispers, right? And so, and I think this voice, and I think that to me is the takeaway from this chat. Like what Karen did, y'all, is she exemplified having it all. And maybe you don't have it all. Maybe you don't have it all. Maybe it's a mess, but there's like this something in you that says you could do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know that Will Smith is like hot water right now, but his book is really good. And he has this part where he talks about this like knowing, and that he would like, I was right about me. And like, I think, Karen, what you're describing is this whisper and this knowing. And now like you can think, I was right about me.
Yeah. So it's even like a little bit more complicated than that, because what happened was, I remember this, it was weird. Like, it wasn't like I was keeping the secret from my husband, but it was almost like I wasn't ready to say the words out loud.
Yes.
To anybody. Like to my husband, to nobody, right?
We do. We all do.
So I was like, it was weird. I was having these like phone conversations with recruiters about like what it's like, but I wasn't even talking about it yet with my husband. And I think part of it was I wanted to be like sure in my decision. And when I presented it to him, to be like, I think I want to do this. You know what I mean? So there was a day, it must have been in like maybe November timeframe, October and November. And our kids were not yet home from school. And I was like, hey, do you want to take a walk? And he's like, okay. And so we were just like walking around the neighborhood. And I was like, I'm kind of thinking that like, I need a change. And the other thing is, and like, this is like why supportive partners are so great, is like, from literally the second the words came out of my mouth, he has been so supportive. Like, the number one person pushing me to be like, you can do this and you're going to be amazing at it was my husband. And every time I sort of like faltered in the process, he was like, you're going to be great at it. And now he loves it because he's like, oh, I told you so. Like, of course, you know, but he was never like, how are we going to make this work financially? Like, there was no question that when it came out of my mouth, he was like, let's do it. Like, it was really like kind of amazing now looking back about like, he never asked the question of like, well, what's going to happen in the months between like when you don't get paid? Like, he was like, we'll make it work. We'll go into our savings. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll make it work.
Awesome.
And like,
I think that it's so interesting what we were talking about, those parts of ourselves, right? That like we bring to our spouses and our relationships, and how, I mean, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Like, you sort of ruminate and work on it for yourself, and you're not even, it's hard to sometimes to tell the people, I mean, often the closest to you, like, hey, there's kind of this wild thing that's happening in me. And, okay, here it is. Like you have to get real sure. And I think, Kate, you said you had a couple questions you were going to ask.
I don't know. I mean, they're about recruiting, and I'm like curious about how that whole world functions.
Yeah, I'll get there in a sec. I can get there like at the end, but I feel like this process is like, it was interesting. And I feel like people who are maybe considering a career change are going to be interested in it, because it's like, the other thing was that there was so much in my personal identity with tied up with being a lawyer.
Yeah.
So part of it was, you know, I have this husband who's like pretty well known in our niche, like little corner of the internet. And like, everybody knew us. We have this podcast where we talk about like being lawyers and being parents. And like, I had this high powered career and everybody knew me as a partner and all that. And like, how do I leave that behind with knowing that like I'm in like the prestige of things? I certainly took a major step back, right? Like, I can see it immediately on people's faces, the difference between telling people like, oh, I'm a legal recruiter versus like, oh, I'm an equity partner at a law firm. You know what I mean? And like, moving on and kind of getting to the point where like, I didn't really care what people thought of my title. You know what I mean? Or I didn't really care what people thought, because I get immense satisfaction out of my job that I feel like my whole life has like just been completely changed by making this transition.
Was that shift hard? Because I find when you shed
so hard.
You shed one part of your identity with the other.
Oh, totally.
There is some space that's itchy.
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. And I told my partner, Catherine, she's like one of my closest friends at the firm. She was the first person I told. And she was so like, she was excited for me, but she was also like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It really came out of left field. I hadn't talked to any of my partners about it. And what she said was, why don't you stay on at the firm as like an of counsel, almost like a contingency plan in case it doesn't work out. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So if you look at our website, like, I'm still listed as a special counsel. And that was so, I like was not ready to give up that full identity. It's almost like when you, and Hannah, you will 100% get this metaphor of like, when you're breaking up, I've said this since I was like 15, breaking up is like knocking over a soda machine. You have to knock it back and forth a couple times before it finally falls all the way over onto its side, right? Because it's like so weighty, right?
Yeah, preach.
And that was kind of like how my transition out of being a lawyer was. But y'all, I tell you, all of my fears, all of the like, how will I give up that title? How will I get out of the partnership? All of that from like day 2 of being a recruiter, I never looked back.
Well, and I think, Karen, one's connected to your ego and one's connected to like your purpose, right? And I feel like a big takeaway for people is considering, and your ego, and I don't mean ego in like this self-centered way, but that part of us that's like the outside, our identities and the things we're saying. I know this because when I got divorced, I wasn't a wife anymore. I wasn't a mom in the same way anymore. My kids lived with my ex-husband at first when I got divorced. Like, all of these things, my identity in this ego way were stripped. Yeah. And your ego is going to fight. It's going to show up in terms of like, hey, why don't you save this title for you just in case it doesn't work out? Like, you have to have safety nets. We'll be okay if is sort of like this protective thing that we do versus I just applaud you and celebrate you and like join with you in having this extreme courage to say, but I'm right about me. Like all
Yeah.
of that, that's not me. Those are clothes I wear, but I
Yeah.
can change
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah.
And you took you to the next thing. Right?
Yeah. And like, I don't know. I think it's like, it's just like what's the most anxious moment when you're doing anything in life? It's that 5 minutes right before it happens, right? And so this was like an exaggerated 5 minutes because it was like weeks and weeks, right? It was like months where I was like, had gotten the offer from my company and I was going back and forth. Like, should I do it? Should I not do it? And like, what was crazy about it is I'm actually like an incredibly decisive person in general. Like when I get an idea in my head, I'm like, this is happening, right? Kate, like you can just tell when it's about someone. So like we'll plan a vacation and they'll like spend literally months picking a location. And like,
my husband,
like,
God, if you're watching this crew.
That's the opposite. Steve and I, if I texted him today, I was like, I think we should go to Mexico for winter break next year. He'd be like, okay. And I could like just pick a hotel and we would have it planned within like 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's how we are. And both of us are like that. Like both of our houses that we've owned in Austin, we saw one house and put in an offer. Like, cause we were like, oh, this is the house. You know what I mean? Like we had looked online,
same.
but that's just us. Like that's how we are. And so this was the first time in my life where I was like, I had a kind of two voices in my head. A part of me was the like, you have to do this. Like something was pulling me. And then the other voice in my head was like, are you insane? Like, are you actually insane? You are leaving so much hard work on the table. And Steve said something very poignant to me that I have really come to fully agree with, which was you have to look at the first 13 years of your career, not as you're leaving that behind for a new career. You have to look at it as that first 13 years is what is making you successful in your next career. And I was like, oh, and I didn't quite get that at the time, but now like I am like just doing so well. And so much of that is all the work that I already put in. So,
well, and Karen, I want you what made you able to, there's two voices. That was your ego and your spirit, I think, right? Like at odds, like stay, be scared. That's our ego. And I must, it's in me.
Yeah.
You had a choice. How did you listen to your spirit and not your ego?
Part of it is like, obviously I was in a fortunate place that we had saved enough that like, if things, I knew, and this is what Steve said. He's like, if you start it and you genuinely hate it, your firm will 100% take you back, which was part of the reason I stayed on as a special counsel, just to like have that kind of insurance policy. And even now, like, so right now we are moving downtown to the Google building, but our lease doesn't start till May 4th. So I'm actually still in my old law firm office. I sublease from them. So I see my old partners all the time. They're like, you ready to come back? You ready to come back? And I'm like, zero desire to do that again. So part of it is I had that insurance policy, which I think that mentally let me push myself off the cliff a little bit more. And it was frankly like someone in the process, my boss now was like, Karen, have you ever not been in the top like X percentage of something that you've done in your life? And I was like, no, like, right. I've always, and he was like, this is not going to be any different. Like you're going to start this and you're going to know immediately that you're going to be successful at it. Like, and if you turns out that you start it and you hate it, you can always go back. And I feel like that, to like tie up our themes, right? Same thing when we moved to Austin. If you hate it, you can always go back. And like, that's the thing. I think when people are making huge decisions is like, it might feel huge in the moment, but truly there is not a single thing in this world that is not undoable. Maybe beyond like
unfigureoutable, right?
Right. Like you have kids and like they're there, like you're like, get rid of your kids. But like, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I guess you could, like, if you were so miserable as a parent, once you had kids, you could like give them to a family member, or put them up for adoption. Like that's just like a harder bell to unring. But so many of the things in our own careers, like, you can shift, you can move, you can, do things that aren't working out for you. And like, that's okay.
Well, and I think a practical takeaway from that I'm hearing, if anybody's struggling with making some sort of a big decision, your heart's telling you one thing, your brain and family members and stuff are telling you another thing, is maybe what made it a little bit easier for your ego to stomach was having an escape hatch, right? Like a sort of backup plan.
Insurance. Yeah.
Yeah. An insurance. Now I posit there's another phase in life where you burn the boats, right? And you're going and you burn the boats behind you and there's nothing but success is the only choice.
Sure.
That's a bit of a different, like, ready to rumble approach.
Yeah.
I know when I started the family law firm, everyone thought I was crazy. I too told my husband, like, he was my boyfriend then at the time. Maybe he was my fiance by then. I don't remember. But I kind of think I'm going to start a family law firm, and like I kind of think it's going to work. Same sort of idea. Yeah. And in my mind, I burned the boats. Like nothing but forward. No, I mean, now I could have gone back to, I guess I could have gone back to the firm, and probably some part of me knew that. I was only 2 years in at a big law firm, so it wasn't the same thing as like the level of experience I would have had to start over and like whatever. Yeah. But I think that either one can be a thing. I don't know, Kate, what about you when you make your decisions?
I'm having like this weird personal realization that I don't feel like I've ever done anything like really wild and bold, you know. And
you do it every day though.
Yeah, are you kidding?
Well, no, I just mean like, you know, I've never really done a career change. I've never moved out of Austin. Like everything. I'm sitting here racking my brains. Like, when did I have the
Kate,
two voices?
Have you recalled the fact that you go on Fox News and go toe to toe with these people screaming at them about, like, are them screaming at you about immigration? Like, are you kidding?
Well, I do stuff that scares the crap out of me.
That's what
weekly. Weekly. I do that. But like, I don't know. I like a big major life pivot. I don't think that's happened to me.
But that's good. That means that you're content with what you're doing and you haven't felt called to do that.
Yeah. And I don't think that, like, but Karen and I share this sort of big switch thing in common, but I don't think that, I mean, I think such a even more beautiful story, or not more, it's not a comparison, but like such a beautiful story is I felt my calling and I listened the first time. I felt my calling. Yeah, to help
you are to it, Kate. You're expanding in what you already know is your calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't feel like a sense of like, oh, why not? It's really cool to hear you guys talk about it and to think about, like, I have complete respect for how brave that was. Yeah. You know, the move and the opening of the firm, and it was a switch in like your practice area, even, Hannah, and the move to recruitment is just like all of that. It feels so brave, and something that I respect so much.
And the only way you get brave, we all know this, is by doing brave things. And you know you're brave by looking in the rear. You don't get I say this all the time, you don't get a brave deposit. You don't get a brave deposit and then you get to act brave. Like, you earn that, and you make your own deposit by doing brave things, surviving, because we always do. We've never like not survived the thing, whatever that was, going on Fox News, starting a different kind of business, moving to a new town. But you become a brave person and know that about your own identity because you've done brave things. Mm-hmm. So like, that's what Karen, I think, probably already knew, like the big move, and this is just another journey for her. Yeah. Now, Karen, I know we're sort of probably better transition to the wrap up. How can people who are maybe ready to make their own brave decision or at least get encouraged about that, how can they get in touch with you, find you?
Sure. So there's lots of different ways to find me. So you can find me on the Whistler Partners website. It's Whistler, like the ski resort, partners, oneword.com, and my bio is there and my contact information is there. I'm just Karen at Whistler Partners. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is at KSVESQ. You can send me a DM there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Karen Vladeck. So yeah, I'm pretty public. Kate and I just did a panel. We don't have time to get into it. Maybe I'll come back for a part 2, but
yes,
we did a social media panel last week, and it was interesting to hear, like, Kate and I are very much in the camp of like, we definitely live on. It's funny, Kate, I don't know if this happens to you, but this happens to me all the time, is I'll meet people and they're like, I feel like I know you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's how you built this network in Austin. Yeah. I mean, it's
it's funny. And I'm like, well, it's interesting because, like, and we could talk about this on another episode, but like they know what I put on that. You know what I mean?
On the internet.
So
for the world to digest.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they know what I put in 280 characters on Twitter. They don't really know me, but they I'm very authentic on Twitter. Like you get a pretty good picture. And then there were some people on the panel that were like, for social media, only put up what you want to be posted, like put on the front page of the Washington Post and like that kind of stuff. And I was just like, I don't think so.
It was a really I think spectrum. Yeah,
there's a good preview of a definite episode to come, like social media for lawyers, and clearly all of our perspective is the same, just like promotional. I call it like professional, personal. There ain't nothing secret
who watches,
to know.
Or did either of you guys watch? Are you Real Housewives fans?
I
a long time ago,
day, but it's been a long time.
So I just remember there's like a meme of Bethany Frankel who says she takes her legs apart and goes, mention it all. I'm like, mention it all, because it's just like that's how I've made so many connections through that, and so many personal like real friendships through that I don't know, I could never imagine it not in my life right now. So.
Well, thanks for showing up and sharing that part.
I love you guys.
I feel like I have to just highlight a couple of the comments that we've just gotten in.
Oh, yeah.
So like Amanda, we love you.
Amanda.
Amanda's done some incredible career transitions and life transitions. And she says it's brave and doable and you can always go back. And this is a woman who knows.
Oh my God. Amanda and her nativity scene.
Oh my God. Her house is just gold.
Oh my God.
No way. She like bakes everything. And I
love it.
Yes. Anna, this is Anna. Thank you for being here. She also comes to a lot of our immigration shows, loves seeing experiences from Austin women. And then there was one in here. I really wanted to show this one from Paula. I just love how real the conversations are. I'm not even a law mom, but I get so much out of them. We love you.
That's so sweet. Thanks, Paula.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I want to come back. I already miss you.
Yeah, I know. Okay, we'll get on the schedule. Speaking of, hey team, we will be back Friday after next, 12:15 live with our next guest. Watch for posts. And hey, if you have a friend you think might benefit from this, if you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're finding us, share. We really want to grow the community. You guys help make it special and vibrant, where we can all just meet and join together. And Karen, thanks so much for now.
If you're a lawyer in need of an agent, call Karen at Whistler Partners.
Love you guys.
Love y'all. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, guys.